Let's imagine that I have a secret, and it's a secret that I want to protect from unauthenticated users. And I will create a new controller to display that secret, but only when a user is logged in. So right-click controller folder, say add new controller. I'm going to select an MVC5 controller, an empty controller. I'll call it the secret controller. And it will have two actions inside. The first one will return a content result, which is a fancy way of just returning a string to the client. You can also return a view result or any type of result. The techniques I'm going to show you to protect this secret apply to all of them, but I just want to do something simple. I'm going to return some content that says this is a secret. So only authenticated users should be able to get to that. And I'll have another method called avert, which is an antonym for secret. It's something that's done out in the open. This is not a secret. So there might be one area of the secret controller that I want anyone to get to, but I want to protect this particular action and keep unauthenticated users from arriving here. If I do a build of the application and run with Control F5, then when I come to this application, I want to make sure that I am logged off, and I want to come to /secret/secret. And the problem is right now, even as an unauthenticated user, I can see the secret. So in ASP.NET MVC, if you just want to restrict access to a specific action to only users that are authenticated against the site, then you can use the Authorize attribute. The Authorize attribute without any other parameters will make sure that the identity of the user is known and they're not an anonymous user. If I do a build and refresh this page, the MVC application will detect that I did not have access to that particular area of the application, and it's going to redirect me automatically to the login page where it will give me a chance to log in and try to get back to that area of the application where I was denied. You can see that is specified in the return URL, which essentially tells this page that if the user logs in successfully, redirect them back to secret. Let's try it. I will log in with the credentials I established earlier, and now I'm back to seeing that secret page. If I come back to the home page and log off, I can not get to the secret page. I'm asked to log in. But if I go to secret overt, I can still see that this is not a secret, even when I'm not authenticated. So that's one strategy for protecting a resource. Now, quite often, you don't want to be placing authorize on every action when you're inside of a controller where pretty much everything requires authorization. In that case, you can always apply this filter to the controller itself, and now every action inside of this controller will require the user to be authenticated. So now when I do a build and I refresh this page that is not displaying a secret, it's going to ask me to log in. But if I really want that to be open, I can come in and sort of override this authorization rule with another attribute, which is allow anonymous. So now I'm telling the framework that by default, every action inside of here requires the user to be authenticated. But allow anonymous will override that. It will allow anonymous users into this one action only. So now I should be able to do a build. I should be able to come back to secret overt. And I'm able to get through and see that, even as an anonymous user. Now with the authorize attribute, you can also specify some parameters. So you can say that I only want to allow specific users into this action. So maybe only the admin user, or in this case, the user S. Allen. You can also specify roles this way. So I could say roles equals admin. The user has to be in a role called admin in order to be able to access anything inside of this controller. If you have multiple users or roles that you want to specify, you can separate them with commas. So here the user has to be in admin or sales to be able to get to the controller. And if I were to come back and change this back to saying users equals admin, there is no admin user. If I tried to get here as S. Allen, I should not be able to. So I go to secret. It will ask me to log in. I'll log in as sallen, which is not the proper user for this controller, and it essentially brings me back to log in again. So even though I'm logged in and the application knows my identity, I don't have the right identity to reach this controller, so I wasn't authorized, and I won't be able to see that secret. And this is the basics of ASP.NET Identity. You can find out the user's identity by looking at user.identity, either inside of a controller or inside of a view. You can do role checks by asking user.isInRole. And by the way, that also works when you're doing Windows authentication or organizational authentication. The user property will be populated. And you can also use the Authorize attribute for any of those scenarios. Individual user accounts, federated identity, Windows authentication. I can use an Authorize attribute to prevent anonymous users from reaching a particular controller action, or an entire controller if I apply it to the controller. And I can also restrict areas of the application to specific users or specific roles. And now that we know some of these basics, let's start from the bottom up to see how these features are implemented. Let's start at the database and see where this user login actually lives.